All right, we are live. It is the No1 Podcast. I am your host, Coach Jake. It is, let me get some lighting on this situation, man. There we go. That's a little better. So it's Friday. Hope you guys are good, man. Hope you guys are good. So it's been a crazy week, man. I have had one hell of a busy week. Last night, I was up in Fort Collins at Feisty Spirits, Feisty spirits.com. Check them out. It's the oldest distillery in Fort Collins, Colorado, northern Colorado. It is also, I think they have won maybe the most awards. Fantastic, high-end whiskey. So if you're a whiskey drinker, highly recommend. Check them out. Feisty Spirits, Feisty Spirits. If they're not in your state, you could just hit them up and talk to them. I think that the way the liquor laws work, if I understand it right, you have to have somebody with a liquor license so you have to go to like a bar or a liquor store and have them contact Feisty and then ship it out there. You might be able to buy it direct. I don't know. It's all weird about shipping this shit over state lines and that kind of stuff. So anyway, I hope you guys are doing good today. The weather is nice. Yeah, man, crazy. I'm always hustling, dude. Like, I literally jumped off the podcast yesterday. I had to get on. I was like 10 minutes late because I stayed on dicking around on the podcast too much yesterday. But I had a good time. Unfortunately for you guys on Apple and Apple Podcasts and Spotify, I didn't get it uploaded. Sorry. You're going to have to go to YouTube. You guys, if you're interested, you could go to, this is the No1 Podcast, N-O-1, N-O-1. If you want to see any of these old shows, simply go to no1.ninja. Yes, that's a real URL. No1 Ninja. I don't know. I couldn't, no1.com was taken. Some dick just squatting on it. But that is my brand now, officially, No1. Love it. Name of this podcast, No1 Podcasting. My coaching programs for Thales are going to be branded around that. It's fitting because Thales was No1. He was the first of the 7 sages of ancient Greece. He was the first to, I think it was by Aristotle's reckoning, to do scientific reasoning. He was the first to come up with like some sort of geometric proof. First guy to come up with an options contract, a derivatives contract. First derivatives trader. Fantastic. Well, I guess he's probably my favorite philosopher. I'm going to have to maybe put Nietzsche right up there. But today, so, I talk about, okay, so I'm obsessed with wrestling, okay? All of it. Amateur, folk style, freestyle. Hey, what's up, Kaiju? Ooh, studying Japanese. Hence Kaiju. I get it, man. Itadakimasu. I know a few words. Ichi ni sanshi goruku shihachi. That's I know like judo shit. That's about it. And a few other terms. I had some Japanese wrestlers teach me some dirty words. Iku and oshiri. And can't remember. Omanku. That's definitely not good language. My Japanese people will know what I'm saying. So anyway, I mean, I think, so I've been talking for like 2 weeks now. I guess it's maybe the 3rd week I've been doing this. I've been talking about this signature talk I'm trying to put together. I still haven't hammered it out. And I'm exploring it with you guys. So I appreciate you guys. I hope this is of value. If this is of value to you, and you enjoy this podcast, please leave me a comment, give me a shout out, give me a No1. Like, I think I'm going to take that little finger emoji like this. That's going to be mine. So I have a couple emojis that I've stolen. I've made them mine. You could do the same thing. Just post them all the time. Like that little pin, it looks just like a mace bell. I put it on all my shit. Or I take a brain and the wrestlers, and that's scientific wrestling. But for No1, it's going to be this little finger emoji thing. So give me a No1 sometime in the chat. I'd appreciate it. But this talk is called Wrestling with Greatness, and it's talking about a couple of things. It's talking about the wrestling business, about the lessons I've learned in wrestling, in business, and what I think applies. Yeah, there you go, number one. Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you. I like it. You're number one. Uh, so yeah, so it's wrestling with greatness, okay? And I've been pounding out these 5 pillars that I've laid down, right? You can go listen to my other shows. I'm not going to go over and over. The first pillar I talk about is getting real. Hey, what's up, Gil? What's up, brother? Good to see you, man. So the first pillar I talk about in this wrestling with greatness signature talk that I'm working on is this idea of getting real, okay? So I want to talk today about, we all hear like, oh, he has a healthy skepticism. Well, I want to know, like, what does that mean? Let's unpack that a little bit, okay? Yo, brother. So let's unpack that. And if there's a healthy skepticism, does that imply that there's such thing as unhealthy skepticism? Okay. And to me, this fits in with the first pillar, which is about getting real, dealing with reality, facts. But what does that actually mean? This is something the philosophers have debated for thousands and thousands of years. We know the allegory of Plato's cave, right? That how do we know that, it's like the Matrix, right? How do we know what is actually real, and are our senses fooling us? And there is some of that, right? I mean, magicians, stage magicians prey on that, right? Like prestidigitation and stuff. So what is a healthy skepticism? I want to discuss that briefly. I can't stay long. I've got a meeting, a hard stop at 2:00 Mountain Time, so I'm only going to be on here 40 minutes. This talk could go on for hours because this is a very, very heady subject, but I think it's one that is crucial because is part of the first pillar in greatness of what I'm talking about in wrestling with greatness. Okay, so the first pillar, get real. Okay, get real. Some people, that's rock bottom, right? Rock bottom is reality kicking you in the ass. If you don't know, right? Let's say you got a bad addiction or a habit. Okay, let's just call it a fucking habit. Let's stop making excuses and medicalizing behavior. You've got a very bad habit. Drugs, sex, gambling, something that is unhealthy. Okay. Maybe you're a bully. Maybe, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the food you eat. Maybe you have a bad habit. Okay. So rock bottom or reality is going to be when you lose your job because your habit is fucking with you that much. Right. The rock bottom, if you have bad habits with food, high cholesterol, I don't know what it could be. Too much salt, too much fat, too much sugar. Maybe you're drinking your calories. Smoking. Start getting spots in your lungs or a rattle in your lungs, and you can't get rid of it. That's reality. Okay? It's that which doesn't go away. I got to find that Philip K. Dick quote about reality. It's so great. It's something. It's like that which, when you stop thinking about it, doesn't go away, and that's reality. I love that because there is a certain thing. Like if you walk off a cliff without a parachute or some other assistance, you will, and it's a high cliff. You're going to injure yourself or kill yourself. These are real. Risks. Okay, that goes on to, I think, the third pillar, which is taking risks, calculated risks. You've got to know what is real so you can make the best decision possible. But what is real, right? Because, sometimes what is real for one person is not real for another person. Now, there are some things that we can agree on. Walking out into busy traffic will kill you. I think that's real. I think we can agree on that, right? Like getting hit by a bus going 60 miles an hour and you're just a normal human, 99% of the time is going to kill you. Falling out of a jet airplane without a parachute at 10,000 feet, 99% of the time is going to kill you. Okay, that's reality. Being in outer space without a spacesuit will kill you. That's reality. Okay. Having your head severed from your body, that will kill you. Okay. That's reality. You can't, there, to a certain extent, there's things that you can't deny. Okay. So I think there is a common sense as to what that is. Things we can share with each other, the things we've seen with other people. Now, I don't want to get too deep into this idea of in philosophy, what's known as solipsism, which is this slippery slope of saying, well, how do I know any of you are real? How do I know I'm not just a brain in a vault and this is the matrix and some simulation and I don't really have a body? Okay, I don't want to get too crazy because, I mean, some very smart people like Elon Musk think that we might live in a simulation. That might be true at a certain extent, okay? But I will tell you this, as far as I can understand, if we're in a video game, in the parlance of gamers, I got 3 kids, so I know all this shit. I don't play video games. I used to when I was a kid, but I don't anymore. But if this is a video game, as far as I know, and maybe reincarnation, I do think there's some evidence for reincarnation. But as far as I know, you don't get to respawn. Or if you do respawn, you don't remember most times. Okay? So it's like finite. It's done. So let's say that we are in a video game or we're not. But that's a parameter of the game in which we are playing right now. So there are certain parameters, whether or not reality is real or not. So we could still just do away with that and say, don't step in front of a bus. Don't walk off a cliff. Simple, I know, right? But when does, so where does skepticism come in? Skepticism is this idea, I think there's guys like David Hume. So I know this is all fucking heady and nerdy to you probably, but these are guys who have thought seriously about thought seriously about reality. Thinking about thought is known in philosophy as epistemology. Okay? Just fancy in court terms to describe what I'm talking about. Thinking about reality is either ontology or metaphysics. Okay? Ethics is thinking about moral behavior, right? So there's all these different kind of branches of philosophy, right? But what I'm talking about right now is that place, that the overlap of the Venn diagrams, the 2 circles of epistemology and ontology, metaphysics and what we know, the theory of knowledge. How do we know what we know? Okay. So now this is interesting, right? Because we only know based on the devices we can use to measure. And that is largely our senses, the ones that we know of. There might be senses that we're not aware of. We have to be open to that idea, right? Gut feelings, maybe some psychic shit. I don't know. I'm just being like open-minded. And this is what I want to talk about, right? This idea of a healthy skepticism. I think a healthy skepticism is open-minded, not dogmatic. Okay, dogmatic is like this way and the only way, and even if evidence comes contrary, it goes against the belief system. And so I think that the measuring tools that we have, our eyes, our nose, our ears, our skin, the sense of taste, all the senses, the 5 senses, and maybe there's more, okay? Maybe there's some evidence that maybe there's an electromagnetic sense. We know that this exists in birds. That's how they know north and south and when to fly and how they fly in formation and things of that nature, okay? So there very well could be more senses than what we are currently aware of. And sometimes it might take more sensitivity. You'd find like yogis talk about subtle bodies or energies that they become aware of through intense meditation. Now, maybe they're self-fulfilling prophecies, maybe they're created, we don't know. The only way we can know things, this is where science comes in, right? I named my company Scientific Wrestling. And there's a reason why I named it that. It's a great term for catch as catch can. Most people, which is the great granddaddy of amateur wrestling, Olympic wrestling, submission wrestling, and theatrical pro wrestling. All of those have a root, a similar progenitor, a predecessor, an ancestor, and that is the sport of catch as catch can wrestling, which I am known as for bringing back, okay, the sport of it and the techniques and codifying as much information and knowledge from the old timers that know and making it relevant for today's game. Okay. But I called it scientific wrestling because I'm a wrestling nerd and I was like, holy shit, I love this catch as catch can stuff. They call it scientific wrestling. I love science. I'm going to put them together. Okay. So let's talk about, I believe that science, real science now, there's a lot of people that claim real science because they use scientific sounding language. That's not science unless there's evidence and repeatable proof. Like you can repeat the processes, okay, to prove your point. That's the root of science. But let's define those terms. Let's unpack them for just a moment, okay? Healthy skepticism, let's talk about terms. Skepticism is something that is really associated with David Hume, and it is this idea, and other philosophers, Descartes, right? I think, therefore I am. He would doubt. He would try to radically doubt everything and see if that would help him understand the world he lived in better, okay? So this idea of doubting is tied into skepticism. So is there a healthy type of doubt? Is there a healthy way to doubt? Right? Yes. So Gil popped in with the comment, the scientific method applied to catch wrestling. To grappling in general, right? That's why I like it, because it implies there's a technical, beautiful, difficult, not easy to learn. It's something that's knowledge based, but expressed through the human body in physical combat under certain parameters and rules. No poking in the eyes or grabbing somebody's balls or any of that bullshit. Like these agreed upon rules, but then go to town outside once those parameters are set, right? And then applying the science to it. And science, okay, so let's talk first about science, and then we'll talk about doubt and the relationship between the two. So science is, everybody hears this term, scientific method, okay? Now you must differentiate between scientific method and scientific language, okay? So let me give you something that sounds scientific, okay? Schizophrenia. Oh man, it's got Greek and fucking, I've never heard that term, schizophrenia. The problem is there is no, so typically in medical science, the way you establish an illness is through something known as somatic pathology, okay? There was a philosopher of medicine, Rudolf Virchow, Virchow. Yes, he's a hero of mine, totally fucking obscure, whatever. He's the guy who came up with this idea of somatic pathology. And that is, unless I can see it under a microscope, I can see it on a blood panel, some sort of chemical test, actual chemical test. I get a sample, it produces a certain result, and that has predictable value. Or there's a lesion. Okay, now a lesion in medical terms, now something like schizophrenia, it is a word that is used to describe a certain kind of behavior. There's no science per se. There's a lot of people that would argue, and a lot of people in psychology that would argue with me, okay, and have argued with me for years on this. I am following a chain of science that is evidence-based, starting with Rudolf Virchow, going up in at least through psychiatry and psychology into Thomas Szasz and a handful of other people that are scientists that believe what I believe, okay? I'm not saying I'm right. Now, this is where skepticism, a healthy skepticism, open-mindedness, I think is important. Because everything should, in my opinion, should be based on evidence. And what evidence is something that I could see and you could see and we can both agree. We maybe call it different things. You may be from, I don't know, you might be from Mexico and I could be from America, and you call a hamburguesa and I call it a hamburger, And it's the same fucking thing. There's a piece of evidence there no matter what we call it. Okay? This is all rather technical and maybe, but I think it's crucially important. These are things that are not taught in our schools in a real way. And I think they're important. So, for example, if you go into, and this is shown, you can find this on YouTube. A lot of these people have been skeptical of the claims of psychiatry. In fact, there was a big scandal a couple of years ago when the DSM-4 was going to become the DSM-5. That's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. There's no statistics in there, just a bunch of fucking words used to label behavior and then bill insurance for it, okay? It's the argument against it is scientism, not science. Scientism is when you use inkhorn terms or prestige jargon or something that sounds scientific to try to convince people that something is scientific when indeed it's not. It's pseudoscience, okay? Wrapped in scientific sounding language. I hate to break it to you, but most of psychology is fucking bullshit. Okay? I think there's some usefulness in putting labels on behavior. I think there's some usefulness in using these as handles from which to communicate. But I think there are some real liabilities and problems with that. Okay? I think we end up medicalizing things that are not medical in the first place. And so we think a pill can solve these problems of life. I'm not saying people don't have problems. People have problems. But how do you solve the problem? Getting them hopped up on serotonin blockers? I don't think so. Okay? Putting them on anti-anxiety meds or Adderall, which is basically cocaine. I don't think those are real solutions to problems. I think they muffle the problem, and then the problem festers and grows. And now you have a couple problems. Now maybe you have a dependency on a drug because you haven't solved the problem. Now, this is something that Thomas Zaz used to love to say from the Greek, or from the Latin, I'm sorry. Cui bono? Cui bono? Who benefits? Who benefits from this? Could it be our angelic, wonderful, innocent, never do anything wrong, big pharma? Yes. Okay. So if you look at the money made on this and you look at it as maybe as pseudoscience and a scam, it's pretty outrageous. Okay. So science is looking for evidence and for repeatable things. And the reason I say psychology is bullshit, you can look up this very fascinating subject. Dr. Ioannidis out of Stanford, massive epidemiologist, brilliant man, fucking genius statistician, another one of my heroes, has written about something called the replication crisis in science. In particular, a replication crisis in psychology is the worst. Okay, but many, many fields. And the point is a vast majority, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but Google it. There's a Wikipedia page. There's all kinds of information. You can read Dr. Ioannidis' original articles. They're up for free, I believe. There's tons of podcasts with him on this subject and others. This is something that you don't see on the news because cui bono? Who pays the news? Every other commercial is about some pharmaceutical where families are at a picnic, it's a beautiful, and then there's a voiceover, may cause bleeding from your anus, and your left eye will liquefy, but ask your doctor if this stupid drug is for you, right? And so thank God they have to make those disclaimers. But people are on all these drugs and then wondering why they're all fucked up and unhealthy, okay? The replication crisis in science is real. It's a real fucking problem. People cannot replicate in particular psychology. So when you hear somebody saying, I saw today somebody saying like, oh, well, studies in psychology say that, you should be listening to classical music and not rap music. And I'm like, boom, bullshit. Right off the top, I'm like, okay, now I can have a skepticism because there's absolutely no verifiable, repeatable replication crisis in the subject this person is talking about. I am not going to stop listening to fucking rap music because some stupid psychology, because some random joker on Facebook says psychologists say rap music. I'm going to tell you something. I consider myself successful by my own terms. Okay. That means, in my opinion, that I have optionality in my life. I have freedom. I have a healthy, I'm healthy. My family's healthy. I'm able to pursue things that I love without duress, without my consent being abrogated. That's for me success and happiness. And I listen to a fuck ton of rap music. Okay. Why? I listen to fucking rap music because it's the only musical genre that talks about fucking making money and succeeding and you know, fuck the man and all this kind of, I like that. Okay. You don't have to like it. I'm just saying, I think it makes, but guess what? I also listen to classical music. Okay. I listen to both of them. And I'm not going to buy anybody's bullshit about something just because they say psychologists say, because I know psychology is bullshit because I follow these topics in epistemology and the theory of knowledge. And I know it sounds nerdy, but it's not. I think of it, this is why I used to call my old radio show Mental Self-Defense. Okay, see how that ties right back into the wrestling, into scientific wrestling. I do believe that you have to have a healthy skepticism. So we've loosely defined science as this notion of evidence-based, verifiable, repeatable experimentation. Okay? Evidence and verifiable implies other people can use the recipe and get the same results. Okay? Again, this is why I call my company Scientific Wrestling. Okay? I think this is why I call my camp the Scientific Wrestling Accelerator Camp. Because I have people come to my camp and they cannot beat somebody at their gym, and they come and hang out with us for a weekend, and we show them this repeatable, verifiable stuff, and they go back and they smoke everybody at the fucking gym that they're having a problem with. And everybody's like, what the fuck? Did you start taking steroids? What the fuck happened to you, man? And it's because of the science that I've been gathering for 20 years in what I'm doing in wrestling. Okay, I've been going and modeling these greats like Billy Robinson, Wade Childs, Carl Gotch, Gene LaBelle, as many of these, Dick Cardinal, all these different guys that I felt had fantastic knowledge that was not being shared. And that was because of, this is another reason why I loved Sakuraba, right? So in science, there was another philosopher, great guy, brilliant guy, Thomas Kuhn, Kuhn. He's the one who came up with this idea of anomalies and paradigm shifts. We've all heard that language, especially like you watch X-Files or any of that kind of fucking TV. They love all that bullshit. It's important though, because we get caught up in the language, in the paradigm, in like what we think it is, these belief systems, right? So for years, we were caught up in this idea of Newtonian physics because it was brilliant. Isaac Newton was fucking brilliant, by the way. Okay? Came up with calculus, came up with optics, came up with physics. Okay? Like the one dude. Okay? And he was a fucking virgin. Weird. And he was an alchemist. Okay? So, an anomaly himself. But that became so standardized that when the ideas of quantum physics started coming along, which are verified, as fucking weird as they are, they've run these experiments so many times because they're so fucking weird, and everybody's like, God damn, it's the same thing every time. This is crazy shit. That's verified. Psychology is bullshit, though. It's not verified. All these journal articles that make these claims, well, if you like the color blue, it tells you about this and it. Bullshit. I mean, most of the psychology claims are bullshit. This also, unfortunately, then trickles up into psychiatry, despite the fact that they claim to be medical-based. There is no lesion, no chemical test, no blood test, nothing you can see of schizophrenia. I'm just using that because they love that. That's like the cornerstone. I'm not saying these people don't have fucking something wrong. Probably some sort of stress-induced thing. it could be some sort of neurological damage that goes undiagnosed. Now, something like Lou Gehrig's Alzheimer's, I could see that under a microscope. Okay, CTE, I could see pugilistic dementia. I could see that. Those are real. Those are verifiable. Those are repeatable. You can see it. You can figure out how to solve it. I'm not trying to turn people into a monthly cash flow by getting them on pills. Awful pills, by the way. If you look at you need to look at these side effects, dude. Oh, I'm depressed. So you're going to take a pill that has suicidality as a fucking, that's antidepressants. You're where's the fucking logic in that? Logic is simply non-contradictory thinking, which is it's a part of science. Okay. So evidence and non-contradictory thinking are science. So how does this play into like a healthy skepticism? Okay. I do think that you have to understand things like anomalies and paradigm shifts. If you study what's known as the history of science, you can see how ideas change, right? First we had Lamarckianism, then we had Darwinism, and now, it's like everything kind of changes, right? We had Newtonian physics and quantum physics and relativity and all these other knowledge changes over time because we keep continuing to do science, which is evidence and verifiable. Okay. So this is why science came from magic and why there's a difference between the two. This isn't necessarily to disqualify magic. Again, like I said, the scientists came out of the magical tradition. Like I'm talking like not prestidigitation. I'm talking alchemy, and these other people had what were considered. The problem is they didn't have what we call today open source. They weren't sharing their data, right? Because, for example, the alchemists were trying to turn lead into gold. They didn't want to share that because if they had the secret sauce, they'd be wealthy and nobody else would, right? But the problem is you can only do so much work. When you start collaborating, you can share data, you can get information faster, right? That's why with scientific wrestling, I've opened it up as a network and I've tried to add as many people as I can because there are going to be innovations. There are going to be things that are important for people to update and maintain relevancy in the modern age, right? So, I swear I'll get to it. I have to because I got to go. I'm being a hard stop at 2. But my point here is that when you have a healthy skepticism, loosely, broadly defined, you're applying non-contradictory thinking to repeatable, verifiable evidence. And you're not being dogmatic, meaning there might be updates to the model. There might be a software update, okay? Like how quantum physics had to add some really weird shit that we still don't even have any fucking clue what it means, but we know what it is. We know the results, but we still can't grasp, right? Quantum refers to physics at a very, very small scale. We know physics at this scale, and this is where Newton's good, okay, at the level at which we exist. But when you shrink down, shit goes fucking weird based on what we understand. And when you go massive, like astrophysics, shit gets weird. That's where you have to start thinking about gravity waves and wormholes and these other crazy concepts, right? And then you're trying to integrate the micro and the macro and the level at which you're at. And you can just do the best you can. So I believe like a healthy skepticism, I think another nice term for it is maybe a radical agnosticism. And that means like just not being 100% sure about anything. Let me ask you something. Do you think that we landed on the moon? Do you believe that we landed on the fucking moon? There are people out there that are dead set that we landed on the moon. There are people out there dead set that we did not land on the moon. And guess where I fall? I have no fucking clue. I don't know. Because I tend to think we did land on the moon, but I could definitely see that there are some problems with that narrative, the way that it's explained, the way that it's shown to us, and that there are some reasons to be skeptical. But without any smoking gun evidence, I'm just going to assume, but it doesn't really matter. Does it really affect me in any way, whether we landed on the moon or not? Not really. Okay. So I tend to believe it. Let's talk about abortion. Is it right or wrong? I'm radically agnostic. I tend to think like if sometime in the future we are able to determine that, in fact, I do a thought experiment. If we are able to determine that life begins at inception, that these are conscious beings, that, if a heartbeat going through the electrical system and brain, it's alive and it has a life, and we're able to somehow really have a firmer, then this is like kind of a genocide. It's a bad thing. I mean, I have a friend, he has a son who has Down syndrome. And there are a lot of people that just flat out terminate if they find out they have a kid with Down syndrome. Is that genocide? The Chinese terminate if you're a fucking woman. Look it up, dude. These are the fucking communists the fucking left idolize. And I'm not saying the right's any better. The right's fucking wacko too. If you don't have the right God, they'll fucking ice you. They'll drop some bombs on you. Okay? So what I'm saying is that I think a healthy skepticism has like room for growth and for the possibility of potentially being wrong, but you're using the best known evidence, not scientific sounding language, facts and evidence. Nothing that's fall under the replication crisis that's going on in science. Okay? Fine, just Google that for me. Replication crisis. 2 fucking words. You can spell replication. REPLICATION. Easy, right? Replication crisis. Look it up. This is good for you to look up. Okay? Because when you go to the doctor and they tell you, oh, you have depression, here's this pill. Guess what? Your doctor fucking's out of it. They could be wrong. Did you know that? You want to know the first leading cause of death in the United States? I'll just tell you these. I've written them in my book, 2009 book, Anomaly. I wrote a whole book on the idea of anomaly. You can go to mentalselfdefense.com. I'll put that up on the for people on YouTube and Instagram, or I'm sorry, Instagram, you don't get to see this, but for people on YouTube and Twitter and whatnot, go to mentalselfdefense.com. I have a bunch of my writings up there, including my old book, Anomaly, and I talk about this. I won't go too far deep down this rabbit hole, but just read about it. Go to the website. You can learn more about it. My point is this, is that be open-minded, okay? Look for evidence. Don't be worried about, like, am I right or wrong, and I got to beat this person and that. Look for the facts. And the facts are things that don't go away, okay? No matter what kind of language you use to describe it or not, okay? Look for evidence. Things that you can get with your senses, not just somebody using language, okay? Because language can be very deceptive. And statistics, what do they say? There's lies, damn lies, and statisticians. Liars, damn liars, and statisticians. You can lie with figures. You can mask the truth in scientific wrapping, but it's not true science. So look up the replication crisis. I think it's truly an important thing. Okay, I think again, an unhealthy to create that contrast between healthy and unhealthy. I think that an unhealthy skepticism is dogmatism. This leads to things like the Spanish Inquisition, right? Where you just think you're infallible. Or you're not open to anything. Oh, that won't work. That's bullshit. Blah, blah, blah. And you don't fucking test it or experiment your own. Really, there's also another subtle point here. There's firsthand knowledge. I talk about all this in Anomaly. Oh, first leading cause of death is heart disease. Second leading cause of death is cancer. This is the Journal of the American Medical Association. This isn't Alex Jones or something. Third leading cause of death, doctors, medical error. And guess what? They segment out the statistics very nicely to make it third. If you put adverse drug reactions, like the opioid crisis, that were doctors prescribing that, I hate to say it, kind of looks that way with these people who were the canary down the coal mine on these untested, unverified, experimental vaccines. I said it. There's a lot of people dying of heart attacks. There's a lot of weird liver diseases coming up. You can see a lot of these doctors that are concerned about this on Twitter. You know what I mean? So if you add adverse drug reactions and medical error, it becomes the number one leading cause of death. And these are scientists. So your responsibility is to understand these things as a human being. Okay? It's your responsibility, nobody else's. Okay? I mean, maybe in a legal sense, if a doctor harms you, you could sue. That's why they have medical malpractice insurance and why it's so expensive, because it's used. Okay? But you don't hear about it. You have to look for that information. Now, that's the great thing about the internet. If you know what to look for, you can usually find something. But a lot of times you have to first know to look for it in the first place. And that's where a lot of people are missing the bus. And I blame the news isn't going to tell you, because they're getting, the news is a platform by which to sell you products. Do you understand that? That's what advertising is. I'm not down on it. I'm like, you just got to be aware of it. Okay. So the news keeps you entertained in between ads for Xarelto and all these other things that they're pumping on these commercials in between. Pay attention to what are the ads. And you're going to find out where you're going to be missing information from the news. And you might need to look that up to have a healthy skepticism. Literally, it will keep you healthy. Okay? The people that are unhealthy are the people that think that they're being skeptical, but they're actually not. They're not looking at repeatable, verifiable evidence. Okay? Well, guys, it is a Friday. Like I said, I got a business meeting here in about 5 minutes that I got to prep for. As always, like I said, No1 is my new brand. Just like there's 10X, I got No1. Use that little finger emoji. Give me a No1 hand emoji in the chat. I would really appreciate that. And if you have any questions, if I can ever be of assistance, I'm just a guy, right? Like, go do your own research. Listen to me. Don't listen to me. I don't care. I mean, I'm trying to be a producer of social media, not a consumer. So I hope this helps you. If it does, or if I can be of further help, let me know. I am all about hopefully making your life better. That's what I've dedicated my life to. I've got some weird ways of doing it, mostly through business, wrestling, fitness, and philosophy and science, but I'm here to help. I appreciate you guys. Have a fantastic weekend, and we'll talk soon. Thanks.